Alright, section 4. Let's see. This is Article 21. Right to autonomy or self-government. 1. Indigenous people, in exercising their right to self-determination, have the right to autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs, as well as ways and the means for financing their autonomous functions. 2. Indigenous people have the right to maintain and develop their own decision-making institutions. They have the right to participate in the decision-making in matters which would affect their rights. They may do so directly or through their representatives. They may do so directly or through their representatives. And in accordance with their own norms, procedures, and traditions. They also have the right to equal opportunities to access and to participate fully and effectively as peoples in all national institutions and fora, including deliberative bodies. Article 22, Indigenous Law and Jurisdiction. 1. Indigenous people have the right. Indigenous people have the right to promote, develop, and maintain their institutional structures and their distinctive customs, spirituality, traditions, procedures, practices in the cases where they exist, juridical systems or customs in accordance with the international human rights standards. 2. The indigenous law and legal systems shall be recognized and respected by the national, regional, and international legal systems. 3. The matters referring to indigenous persons or to their rights or interests in the jurisdiction of each state shall be conducted so as to provide for the right of the indigenous people to full representation with dignity and equity before the law. Consequently, they are entitled without discrimination to equal protection and benefit of the law, including the use of linguistic and cultural interpreters. 4. The state shall take effective measures in conjunction with indigenous people to ensure the implementation of this article. Article 23, Contributions of the indigenous legal and organizational systems. 1. Indigenous people have the right to full and effective participation in decision-making through representations chosen by themselves in accordance with their own institutions in matters which affect their rights and which are related to the development and execution of laws, public policies, programs, plans, and actions related to the indigenous matters. 2. Capital states shall consult and cooperate in good faith with the indigenous peoples concerned through their own representatives institutions in order to obtain their free, prior, and informed consent before adopting and implementing legislative or administrative measures that may affect them. Article 24, Treaties, Agreements, and Other Constructive Arrangements. 1. Indigenous people have the right to the recognition, observance, and enforcement of the treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements concluded with states, lowercase states, and their successors in accordance with their true spirit and intent in good faith, and to have same be respected and honored by the capital states. States shall give due consideration to the understanding of the indigenous people as regard to treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements. See, and this is why I always say, even with the fiat, when I put on there in good faith intent to discharge the debt and all, and then also they also says, according to the Constitution for the United States, that full faith and credit should be given to the lower states, built states, which are the indigenous people. So we shouldn't have to be spending fiat on what they want us to spend it on. Now, it's our right, and we'll get to that, it's our right to work. Since we work, and that's our right to work, according to the Constitution for the United States of America, according to the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, if we work and we get a retirement, which is backed by the Constitution for the United States, Treaty of Peace and Friendship, all these things, because we have, as indigenous people, have the right to work, and if we work in according to what has been established, and we receive safety retirement, it's our right to receive that. But just because we receive that, others can't get jealous and mad and say, well, since you're receiving that, you got to give us some of that. You don't have to give nobody nothing. If you earned it, if it's yours, and it's still their obligation, according to this, according to the treaties, that we shouldn't have to be spending fiat to receive anything. It's already ours, according to we're the originals of this land, the indigenous people. The corporation set up here, and that was their promise to provide for us, to do business on this land. If I'm wrong, put it on the record. All right. All right, let's see. Okay. 24 treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements. 1. Indigenous people have the right to the recognition, observance, and enforcement of the treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements concluded with states, lowercase states, and their successors in accordance with their true spirit and intent and good faith, and to have the same be respected and honored by the capital states. Capital states shall give due consideration to the understanding of the indigenous people as regards to treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements. 2. When disputes cannot be resolved between the parties in relations to such treaties and agreements and other constructive arrangements, these shall be submitted to the competent bodies, including regional and international bodies, by capital states or indigenous people concerned. Then it has 1. State of Columbia, capital state of Columbia, break with consensus as regards to Article 23, paragraph 2 of the OAS Declaration of Indigenous People, which deals with consultations for obtaining indigenous. Then it has 3. Nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as diminishing or eliminating the rights of indigenous peoples contained in treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements. Okay, Section 5, Social, Economic, and Property Rights. Article 25, Traditional Forms of Property and Cultural Survival. Right to land, territory, and resources. 1. Indigenous people have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinctive spiritual, cultural, and material relationship to their land, territories, and resources, and to assume their responsibilities and preserve them for themselves and for future generations. 2. Indigenous people have the right to the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired. And this is what the Moors, and if I'm speaking wrong, Moors, correct me, because I'll stand corrected. But this, I believe, is what they're saying the Treaty of Peace and Friendship has established on the land where the corporate capital state has agreed to provide all the needs of the indigenous people. Let's say the indigenous people have the right to own, use. I'm going ahead of myself. This is 2. Indigenous people have the right to the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired. 3. Indigenous people have the right to own, use, develop, and control the lands, territories, and resources that they possess by reason of traditional ownership or other traditional occupation or use, as well as those which they have otherwise acquired. Go back. American. Originally applied to the original people, the indigenous people, or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans. Those are the Americans. He said, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans, born in America. See, these people are born in America, but the original people was already here. And then the colonize. Send settlers to a place and establish political control over it. Settle among and establish control over the indigenous people of an area. See, this is not me talking. This is evidence. This is what they provided for themselves. So you can't get mad at me for reading what's there. And they just told you right here, all the land belongs to us. Now, you know, haters gonna get mad anyway and be mad at me, but be mad at the people who told you. These were Europeans who wrote this stuff. Four, states shall give legal recognition and protection to these lands, territories, and resources. Such recognition shall be conducted with due respect to the customs, traditions, and land tenure systems of the indigenous peoples concerned. 5. Indigenous people have the right to legal recognition of various and particular modalities and forms of property, possession, and ownership of their lands, territories, and resources in accordance with the legal system of each state and the relevant international instruments. The lower states shall establish the special regimes appropriate for such recognition and for the effective demarcation or titling. All right, and move on to the next video.